Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me for a new episode of Tenacious V's podcast. Every couple weeks, I get together with some friends or family and tell some stories of amazing women throughout the centuries. Just really trying to get those untold stories out there. This week, I was joined by my fiance Johnny and my good friend and roommate Will, and we discussed Dr. Rita Levi-Montalcini, an incredible Italian scientist who just did more than I can even fathom doing and lived to be 103 years old. She was truly an inspiration and an incredible person to have around, and it's very unfortunate that she's not with us anymore, but she did some incredible things and paved the way for even more incredible things to happen in the future. I really hope you guys enjoy. Ciao, amici, and welcome back to another episode of Tenacious V's podcast. Today I'm joined by my roommate Will and my fiance Johnny, and we're going to be learning about Rita Levi-Montalcini. Now, what do you guys know?
I know nothing about this person.
Where is this person from?
Italy.
Italy. How do you say their name?
Rita Levi-Montalcini.
Montalcini. Is there any? Okay, what has this person done that we might be familiar with? Like, how would we know them?
She's a scientist.
A scientist.
Nobel Prize winning scientist.
Oh, she won a Nobel Prize.
Did they have something to do with astronomy or outer space? Or
Nope. You want to just dive right in?
I mean, we're talking about it. Let's hear it. Rita. It's Rita?
Yep.
Rita.
All right, so Rita was born on April 2nd, 1902 in Turin, Italy, and she was a Sephardic Jew. She has a twin sister, Paola, and two older siblings, Gino and Anna, I think is how the Italians would say it, or Anna.
Anna?
I would think Anna has two N's, you know?
Yeah.
So her parents were Adele Montalcini, and she was a painter and a fabulous woman, and Adamo Levi, an electrical engineer and a mathematician. So, like pretty well-educated people.
Oh, yeah.
So as a teenager, she was like obsessed with this Swedish writer, Selma Lagerlöf, and she loved her so much that she actually was like gonna pursue writing and wanted to be a writer.
Oh, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but what did this woman Selma write about? Like, what type of writing did she do that inspired Rita so much? Was she writing about math or art or
Novels?
I actually don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
But this Swedish woman, what was her name?
Selma Lagerlöf.
Selma. Okay, so Rita read her books and was like...
She just like loved it, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I almost want to say poetry for some reason, but that could be totally wrong.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
That's something we can check out later.
Yeah. Included in the extras.
There you go.
A little bit after that, she lost a family member, like a really close family friend, to stomach cancer. And so, like, at that moment, she decided that she was going to be a doctor and pursue medicine. And which was, like, pretty kind of taboo because her family was very much, like, her father was very traditional and, like, didn't think that women should pursue education because it could get in the way of, like, being a wife and a mother and stuff, you know? So he, like... Yeah, he didn't really like encourage his kids at first, but then like he actually did eventually come around and was super supportive of her becoming a doctor.
Nice.
And so once she like realized that she wanted to do that and that just like the feminine role wasn't going to be her role in life, she decided to study. And so within 8 months, she filled her like knowledge gap of Latin, Greek, math, and graduated high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how old was she at this time? Around this time?
I don't know.
Okay.
It didn't give me an exact year
Sure.
that this happened, but then she graduated from the University of Turin with a summa cum laude degree, the medical doctorate in 1936.
Okay.
So
She was born in
She was-
1909.
yeah,
Okay.
So
So
probably about 1909. So she.
25.
Oh, so this was probably during the First War, the First World War, wasn't it? Because around 1916.
Earlier,
Oh, okay.
1900.
Oh,
This is definitely World War II era. 1936.
Oh, 36. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's getting
That's-
into the Second World War.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it
what's
was
going
like
on.
the rise of the Axis
Okay.
around that time. People
And
coming
she's
to power.
Italian, so under fucking
She's a Jewish Italian
under
too.
fascist rule.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to be an educated woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a rough go of it for sure.
That sounds pretty rough.
Yeah.
So, but while she was at University of Turin, she got like super enthralled with the work of Giuseppe Levi, which is like funny because they have the same last name, coincidental.
Nice.
But he was studying the nervous system in humans, which was like a brand new science at the time. Like it was just first being discovered and like studied in depth at all. And so she actually stayed after she graduated to be Giuseppe's assistant.
Okay.
But this did not last very long because in 1938, the Manifesto of Race by Benito Mussolini was released, and laws were passed barring any Jews from university positions at all. So she got cut. And then during like the early stages of World War II, she had a lab set up in her bedroom, like while she was, because she couldn't teach and she couldn't like do any further education or anything. So she just set up a lab in her bedroom and was studying in there.
Okay.
And she was in her bedroom lab. She was studying the growth of nerve fibers in chickens. And there's a documentary called Death by Design, The Life and Times of Life and Times, where she's like interviewed and she talks about the experience of studying the chicken nerve fibers and how it like shaped the foundation of her studies for like a really long time.
Okay.
But her sister's also in it, who became like a really famous artist and worked with this unique metal that was like white and reflected light, so it lit up spaces. So
Okay.
yeah. So when the Germans invaded Italy in September of 43, Rita and her family had to flee to Florence, to get away. So they all like ran, and they hid out with false identities in like a home of some non-Jewish friends of theirs. So that's awesome that they had those friends,
Yeah,
It's always
definitely.
like
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, protect from the Nazis is definitely a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
She even kept studying in hiding. Like she in the corner of their little living space in their friend's like attic or whatever situation it was. She just had a lab set up in the corner and was still just doing her thing.
Just studying nerves.
Mhm.
Okay. So the growth of nerve fibers was like the experiment she was working on.
She was just in general studying like how they worked, their patterns, like where they were in the body and like where they stemmed from, because like nothing was known about them at this time, so you got to think it's like it's like when people discovered veins, so they were like mapping veins throughout the body and things like that. So that's kind of what she was doing with nerves, is just like figuring out like how they grow, how quickly they grow, their structure, like everything she could about them at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, and just super badass.
Yeah, very much so.
She also was like friends with high up people in the Action Party, which like a liberal socialist political party in Italy. So they were like the anti-fascists at the time. And after the liberation of Florence in August of 1944, she volunteered her medical expertise, like for the Allied Health Service.
Oh, nice.
And so she was like out there helping wounded soldiers and like people who had been injured in the war and stuff, which is really awesome.
That is very
Yeah,
cool.
just super badass.
For sure.
Yeah. So in 1946, she was granted a single semester research fellowship again. Like once the laws were taken back for Jews to like work in universities.
So she was able to continue her studies where she left off. With
Yeah.
This extra
with like this.
information she had learned from studying the chickens. And
Yeah,
pretty much, okay.
it was super cool. So this was with Victor Hamburger at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. So she actually was in America.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And like once, so she had to prove to Hamburger. I love that. That's his name. Like
Hamburger.
it's literally Hamburger.
Do
It's
we know where he's from?
Hamburger. I don't know where he's from. I think he's from there or Germany.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
That
it's
sounds like
Germany.
It sounds like
honestly
Germany.
knows,
He
yeah.
might have fled from the war too, you know,
Sure,
and like that's why
exactly.
he granted her the position. But he made her duplicate her experiments that she did at home before he like allowed her to get a full-time position there. But then she actually she did it and she got a full-time research associate position, which she held for 30 years.
Oh wow.
Okay, so she must have been in her like 40s now.
So it's 46, so she'd be
She's 35.
35.
Oh shit. Okay. Damn, that's a lot of fucking shit to
So
do.
30 years after that, she continued to have that associate's position. So into her 60s, still studying.
For 60.
And
Yeah.
was this still at the same university in St. Louis?
Uh-huh.
Okay. State of
So,
Washington.
yeah. And so like for this time is when she did her most prominent work, and she isolated the nerve growth factor by observing cancerous tissues in tumors that cause rapid growth of nerve cells.
Okay. So like how quickly like cancer cells like grow and spread? Is that like what she was looking at and studying that and getting the information from there? Or...
Okay, so she created a mass full of nerve fibers by transferring pieces of tumors to chick embryos, and the nerves grew and surrounded the tumor like a halo. So the nerves grew insanely quickly to surround the tumor.
Okay.
Was that like a response for the nerves, like to like try to fight the growth, or what?
It's a chemical that the tumor releases that stimulates the growth of nerves. So that's like the nerve growth factor is that chemical that is released by the tumor.
I see. Okay, and this is what she discovered. Right?
She isolated that chemical and figured
fuck.
out that's what was causing the nerves to grow so quickly. And so now they use it to like heal nerves essentially. Like they do work on. They could use this to stimulate the nerves to grow more quickly and
kind of just healing like
Yeah.
nerve damage and going over. Okay.
yeah.
And there's ways to stimulate that.
Yeah, there's like a chemical that you can introduce, and it'll stimulate the nerves to grow really quickly. Because so like one of the reasons that she was able to isolate it was because she realized that the nerves would take over areas that were going to become other tissue, like around the nerve
But yeah, should like is that
or around the tumor.
okay? So I've got a question. I gotta back up real quick.
Go for it.
Is the nerves growing? Is that a negative or a positive thing? Because to me that doesn't sound good. Like to have parts of your body like getting like bigger, like a growing tumor kind of thing. Like is it?
So in the sense that they use it medically, it's definitely a good thing because it's like if
Okay.
you're into it, like a bunch of nerves died. And then so what this chemical would do is stimulate those nerves to regrow quicker and
okay.
faster.
That's fucking
But like
awesome.
I think in the sense of a tumor, it's a negative thing because it's like surrounding the tumor and it kind of like protects it in a way. It makes it like
I
harder to
see.
remove because it's
Because
kind of
your
part of
nerves
your
are-
body.
Your nerves are intertwined with it, so you don't want to start damaging nerves cutting into it, right? So.
But and she was noticing that like the nerves were growing into veins even and everything, like growing into everything except for arteries, which would flow back into the tumor. Like so it was just like isolated to where it was flowing out from the tumor and not back into it.
Okay.
That sounds gross.
Yeah, it all sounds really terrible.
No, that doesn't sound good at all.
I feel like I don't have like a great grasp of what all that means.
Yeah, I'm trying to
So,
put it together.
I have like
Me and you figure out the same thing.
I have a
Trying
pretty
to follow
decent
you.
definition of nerve growth. It's a
Awesome.
it's a neurotrophic factor, which is a family of biomolecules, generally protein. That's what a neurotrophic factor is. and it's involved in regulation, growth, maintenance, and proliferation and survival of certain target neurons. It was the first growth factor to ever be described, and many biological processes involving nerve growth factor have been identified since Rita and Stanley isolated it, including the survival of pancreatic beta cells and regulation of the immune system. So it's like balancing, and I don't know. They've discovered all sorts of uses. I'm not smart enough to understand all of this either, but this was her work.
Okay, well, so they still use to this day when they're working with like studying people's nerves and her work is what like people like base their like studies off of kind of thing too. Like is she like
Oh yeah, people have continued to study it like far after her, and so she discovered it in like combination with Stanley Cohen. Like they were working together, to discover it. But it seems like she gets more credit for it, which is
that's
interesting.
good.
Yeah,
So
that's
they should
what I
probably
was
find
finding
more.
was that it seems like she got more of the credit, and he was just kind of like her assistant almost.
Okay.
But yeah, so people are like still studying it, and it's like more and more uses for nerve growth factor have been discovered, like since she stopped studying
Sure.
it, basically, like stopped doing in-depth research into that specifically, and I don't know, it's pretty crazy, like people
Yeah.
and other like growth factors of different things, like different types of cells and stuff in the body have been discovered since she discovered this.
Okay.
But this was the first specific like growth factor that was ever like described and made a thing.
It could be like repeated and shown that it's
Like
okay.
this is what's causing this growth to happen.
Yeah. So okay, is that why she received a Nobel Prize?
Yeah, it
Was
is.
for the discovery of the nerve growth factor.
Yeah,
Okay, so that actually is like a pretty big accomplishment.
yeah,
For sure.
it's a pretty big deal.
Okay. This is honestly, this is something that like in my life I've never really considered
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, they
I've
got
known
the.
people to get in accidents and stuff like that, but don't really think about it much. Like what came to mind for me was people who have strokes and when their like nerves are severed and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's the right what happens, but I know that like people who have control or they was because it has something to do with them not being able to.
I think it.
And I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask if like is her work what is able to help people kind of like deal with nerve damage like that kind of thing. Like I'm just yeah.
Yeah, because I thought that seems like a pretty severe, right? Because that's like nerves that have trouble regenerating. I thought it was kind of like a.
Well, I think what the stroke does is it affects part of your brain, so that part of your brain that controls your face or whatever like actually doesn't work anymore.
Okay, so that's
You know
not
what I
what
mean? Like,
she's.
and I think parts of it could be applied to that because it says it affects certain neurons. So you're like using the nerve growth factor to target specific neurons. So you probably could, in theory, use it in a way to reverse like the effects of a stroke.
Re-spark something in the brain, maybe.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like it's all in the brain there. It's where your neurons. So if it's trying to regenerate those, like re-spark that.
But with Rita, it was going to be more like her, like the thing was, she was studying things with like accidents and stuff with nerve damage.
She
Or
was just
nerves in
studying
general.
nerves in general. She was just trying to like advance the understanding of the human body and like bring to light things that could be like useful. So she just wanted to figure out what was making nerves tick and like why that happened and everything. And so she kind of laid the groundwork for other people to use it medically.
Okay. Okay. Have there been any like major discoveries or anything else like significant coming from her research? I think that other people have.
Yeah, that's
like,
there's been a ton of processes involving it that have been identified since they discovered it.
Okay.
And a couple of them are the regulation of the immune system and then the survival of pancreatic beta cells.
Okay, that's right. I'm
So-
sorry.
Having to,
Okay.
yeah. They didn't get the Nobel Prize until 1986, and they discovered it in 56, I believe.
She's 90 years old at that point. 95.
No, it should be 85.
85. Yeah, 85, you're right.
She lived to be 103.
Oh,
So
wow.
they were
Yeah.
studying this over afterlife,
Yeah,
like for like almost a fucking
a really long
three-quarters
time.
of it. God damn.
Yeah, that's crazy. Regenerating her nervous system over and over.
Yeah, right.
She just kept
Out of youth.
restart.
Hell yeah.
I guess they officially isolated the nerve growth factor in 1958. So,
Yeah.
so she was 49 or 59. No, 49.
49.
When they discovered it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, never really hear about, especially like women, but like I in my life don't hear about scientists and what they do, and you know that's something you don't think about. I mean, I don't think about like.
I know, but it's so cool when you
It
hear
is,
about
yeah,
it, right?
because,
Like,
I mean, what it does, obviously,
yeah,
it does have like a positive effect on fucking, you know,
everyone.
humanity. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, you know.
It continues to just help like society for years to come. But that's just kind of crazy that she like worked for so long, 49 years old,
Yeah.
before you finally like your life's work like reached that point of like.
But wait, there's more.
Did she get a second Nobel Prize?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you can get more than
Did
one.
she?
No.
Oh.
So the same year that she isolated the nerve growth factor, she became a full professor at Washington University. And then in 1962, she established a second lab in Rome, and she like split her time between the two. So then in 1963, she became the first woman ever to receive the Max Weinstein Award for contributions to neurological research,
Oh wow.
which is a very prestigious award in the neurological realm of things.
Yeah, super doctor, super brain doctor.
Hella sweet.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess kind of going back to, did she ever get her degree? Was she ever able to?
Yeah,
actually
yeah, no,
complete-
she finished and then she did 2 years as an associate under the guy that she was like really into the
hamburger.
yeah, no. It was
Her partner in St. Louis.
Giuseppe
Okay.
Levy, the guy with the same last name as her.
That's right.
So yeah, she did 2 years as his associate, and then the Mussolini laws came into effect, and then she had to go into hiding for a while, and then came back and was Hamburger's assistant in
In Missouri.
yeah.
Okay. So what was her degree in? Really, like what?
It was a medical doctorate.
Medical doctor. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Scientist, a doctor, so it's.
So she was like a doctor. She was technically a medical doctor.
Dr.
She was
Levy.
yeah, Dr. Levi-Montalcini.
Montalcini. That's super cool.
Yeah. So then, from the years 1961 to 1969, she was directing the Research Center of Neurobiology of the CNR Rome. And then from 69 to 78, she ran the Laboratory of Cellular Biology in Italy, which is like a huge, huge research center in Italy. It's like a big hub. Like to this day, it's a pretty big deal. So.
Okay,
Dude,
when
she's an
I
intense lady.
agreed to like do this, and you asked me if I could guess who it would be.
Dude, it's
had
fucking
no
hard.
fucking idea what I was getting into.
We intentionally
I would have gotten this.
We intentionally try to pick women that everyone's just like, I've never heard of her, because
That's
like
good.
they're the ones that need their stories told, you know?
This is definitely someone I think that deserves. You know, I'm glad you told me about it. I never would have found out about this otherwise. I don't think.
Never even heard about. Yeah, this person
Yeah.
is crazy though.
And she's done so much. So, in 1977, she retired and was appointed as the director of the Institute of Cell Biology of the Italian National Council of Research in Rome. So she retired and then immediately took a new job.
She she couldn't stay busy. It sounds like she's so hardworking and done all this shit. It's like she goes, no, retiring doesn't work for me. I gotta fucking be in my lab. I gotta be studying shit. Like,
No free time. Like, doesn't even talk about. I don't know. We haven't heard anything about her personal life. Like,
Yeah,
her
she just
accomplishments.
didn't have one.
Everything's just been work and
Yeah.
research.
Right.
It's dedication. That's how you change the world.
Yeah. So she then retired from there in '79, but continued to be a guest speaker consistently. And then in 2002, she founded the European Brain Research Institute, and she was the president of that institute. And she got actually massive criticisms in 2010 for her role in that company, being like elderly, but then also
101 years old, and with all these accomplishments, people are criticizing her for being too old to be.
well, it
doesn't
was
sound like it was her. It sounds like it was this. Is it this company? Or
no, so it was because in the 70s she was working as a researcher for this company Fidia, and they were a pharmaceutical company in Italy, and she like helped better their understanding of gangliosides, which are like some sort of lipid protein. Um, I'm sorry, I didn't look too far into those.
That's okay.
Anyway.
I don't know.
But they're really important molecules in immunology, so like the immune system and all that.
Okay.
But beginning in '75, she was supporting Fidia in selling a drug called Cronazole, which was made with bovine brain tissue. But the study, like independent studies,
brains.
Cow brains.
Coward.
But there was independent studies done that showed that the drug could actually treat the intended illness, which was peripheral neuropathies, which I have no idea what that is. But years later, there was like a massive side effect from it, which was Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is like a very serious illness. Like, it's kind of, I don't think it's treatable either. So it was like really fucked.
Yeah, this company that she had helped.
Mm-hmm. She helped produce this drug basically, and so like Germany pretty much immediately banned the drug in 1983, but Italy waited until '93, and it was like a pretty big deal. And then once they were investigated, like during that time around the '90s, it was found out that the company, so like Fidia, the company that she was working for, had paid off the Italian Ministry of Health to just like fast track the drug and just like get it on the shelves and everything. But like, and that was also the same time that her involvement in the company was like publicly exposed, you know. So that like came back around later in 2010 as like what happened, and people were like, why are you shouldn't be running this institute, and like because you were involved in this. But she just was like trying to help make a drug. Like she wasn't a part of it being fast tracked or anything like that. She was just in the development. Yeah, pretty much. And then she got like screwed over by being involved with that shady company.
She got used for her fucking science and shit.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies were like, we can use this brains to make a buck, kind of bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Make some quick money, regardless of the safety of the consumer.
That's fucked up. So that slandered her name.
Yeah, it did. Like people were like mad criticizing her and stuff, but it was, I don't know. She just kind of kept going. She's just like, whatever, fuck it. I'm still the president.
This shit going around with this company and her, did it kind of dissipate and fucking she kind of, or did she like, you know, this is later on in her life, isn't it? She like 80.
She's 101.
Okay.
So yeah, like, so I think she was kind of just like, ah, fuck it, you know, like, I think it did eventually die down and people were kind of like, and she stepped down as president too, but yeah.
That's like so disappointing of a way to end this.
It's okay.
like she did all
well,
that.
so backtracking a little bit.
Well, you fucked once, like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's
No, it was like 20 years, but. Oh no, I guess it was in the 70s that she made the
30
drug.
some odd
Yeah.
years. Like,
It was just like in the 80s that people started having the side effects. So it was like 10 years later.
what were the side effects again? Like,
It was Guillain-Barré syndrome was being reported, which is like a serious neurological disorder.
That's what affects the brain.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's like
so-
bad.
what is it?
Which
What
also, I
is
imagine,
that?
has to do related to her work with nerves and stuff, right? And her opening this book.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was something the gangliosides had like a negative effect at some point, and I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I don't know. That was a lot to get into, and there's already so much here.
I want to know what these like effects are, like what it is that makes it like so brutal.
Okay, so sorry if we went off track a little bit. Yeah, I just sorry. I hate the idea that like this bullshit went down and she wasn't a part of it, and then the last years of her life is like after all this, that she's done with teaching and everything.
Everyone
like,
gets
by the
fucked
way,
at some point.
So
Oh, it doesn't really matter because you know,
fucked up once.
yeah, and you weren't. We know that you weren't really involved, but it is your fault. You're easy to scapegoat here.
So the symptoms of Guillain-Barré syndrome are the first symptoms are tingling or prickling sensations in your fingers and toes, muscle weakness in your legs that travels to your upper body and gets worse over time, difficulty walking steadily, difficulty moving your eyes or face, talking, chewing, or swallowing, and severe lower back pain.
Your body shuts down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's all pretty horrible. Can't swallow. That's yeah, that's all pretty bad. So yeah.
It's also loss of bladder control, fast heart rate, difficulty breathing, and paralysis.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's pretty fucking severe thing that they were like imposing on people.
Yeah, to make some money. Well, what was it supposed to be treating? Like,
It was supposed to be treating peripheral neuropathies, which I don't.
peripheral neuropathies, like do
Something
the
with
pros
with
outweigh
the
the
eyes.
cons even on this? Like,
Something to do with the eyes, maybe.
peripheral.
That's a
Side.
Peripheral.
sign of your brain.
It's a weakness, numbness, and pain from nerve damage, usually in the hands and feet. A common cause of peripheral neuropathy is diabetes, but it can also result from injuries, infections, and exposure to toxins.
Okay, so that's pretty mild compared to. So trying to treat that, we're just gonna make it way worse.
Yeah.
Tell people.
Yeah.
That's,
Give you that times 10.
Yeah, so like now not only do your hands and feet tingle, but
You're
can't
paralyzed.
swallow. Your eyes are. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Okay, so bad call.
Yeah. Well, it's because they fast tracked it. They didn't do the proper testing on it.
Yeah. It doesn't make money. It spends money.
So back in 2001, though, she actually got appointed as senator for life by the president of Italy, which is pretty cool.
Oh wow.
And she supported kind of a more left ideology and was mocked by like fellow senators for that and her old age, which is like just I don't know. That's just funny to me. All senators are fucking old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're 90. I'm only 87.
you're too old to not be sick.
That's so
Yeah, right.
You gotta be like an asshole like us.
Yeah.
At this age, gotta be a grump.
Everything's about money.
It's all about money.
So she actually talked about how she never like married or had children, like we were saying, like no personal life really. And she said that I never had any hesitation or regret in this sense. My life has been enriched by excellent human relations, work, and interests. I have never felt lonely.
I like it.
I like it.
I dig the fuck out of that.
Hell yeah.
Well said.
So she passed away in her home in Rome on December 30th of 2012 at age 103. And the mayor of Rome called this a great loss for all of humanity. So that's very sweet.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's like 7 years ago. That's nuts.
Right? And she was born in 1909. She died 7 years ago. It's just insane.
Yeah, just seeing so much living through so much, like.
Like, she lived from before there was, like, cord phones in everyone's home on the wall to owning an entire computer in your pocket.
She ran from fascist just to be tricked by capitalist companies. Like,
Yeah, no wonder she had all those left leanings.
yeah.
Hang out with socialists.
I kind of see how this went the wrong way.
Yeah.
We had a real nice house. I had a lab up until these guys came through. Like, now I live in someone else's house. It's not even my name. Like,
Yeah.
That's rough.
My favorite quote was a fellow scientist, Mario Monti, called her charismatic and tenacious. I thought that was super appropriate.
That's the name. That's awesome.
So that was the life and times of Life and Times. Rita Montalcini.
Rita Montalcini. Dr. Montalcini.
Dr. Rita Levi-Montalcini.
Wow.
I thought she was awesome.
Sounds pretty cool. Sounds like she just kind of got, like, her whole life was just her trying to do cool stuff and just getting dicked around.
I feel like she did some pretty cool stuff, though. She got recognized. She got a few pretty amazing awards.
Yeah,
that's true, yeah.
She did, definitely.
Thanks for stopping by, everyone. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed that episode, you can give us a follow on any social media. We are Tenacious V's Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, Podbean, Patreon, and Instagram. As always, this episode was spoken, written, and recorded by Nona, and she's joined by guests Will and Johnny. The music was done by Denver rapper Staple Milk. Come back next time.